Hello everyone. Welcome back to FAD Learning. In our last video of this series, we created a new Angular project in version 20 and installed Bootstrap for styling while building a calculator application. Now we are continuing with the same project in this video where we will implement a to-do list application using same Angular 20 and Bootstrap. And for data storage, we have options like local storage, session storage, JSON server, etc. So here we will be using local storage for this to-do list project. And if you are interested in learning more about JSON server or revisiting local and session storage, I have covered these topics in previous videos, including our Angular 19 tutorials. I will share the link in the description below. So let's start by generating a new component called TODO using the Angular CLI command ng g for generate, c for component, and component name TODO. Enter. And here also you can see our project is in Angular version 20 and we have installed the Bootstrap version 5.3.8. Okay. So we have successfully created our TODO component. Now next, we will render this component on the page, and to do this, we will add the component selector to the app.html file. So here, for now, I'll comment out this calculator and I have added the to-do selector inside the app template file. Also, we need to import the to-do component inside the imports array, and I'll remove this calculator component. Now I'll run the project using command ng space s. Control C, CLS, ng space s for serve. And once the application is running, I can navigate to the browser. And as we can see here, the to-do component has been successfully rendered on the web. Now, let me go back to Visual Studio Code Editor and let's create a simple UI for our to-do list application. So let me open the todo.html file. Let me close this package.json, app.ts and app.html. So let's focus on only todo component. And for the UI of to-do list application, I'll copy the template file of calculator and modify it to fit our to-do application requirements. Okay, so I'll keep this card and till heading, I'll keep as it is. And I'll remove this inner portion. Okay. Yes. Instead of calculator, I'll write to-do list. And inside this card body, I'll add one more div with class call sm12. And inside this, I'll take one input field of type text. Here I'll add class call sm10 and placeholder add new task here. Okay. After that, here I'll add a button with name add. Button with class btn dot btn sm dot btn success. And the button name is add. Save the changes and let's check the changes in the browser. Button spelling mistake button. Okay. Let me change the color of this heading to text primary. And here I'll add margin 1 and here I'll change the padding to 5. Okay, instead of primary, I'll change the color to warning, not primary. Okay, so we have added one input field along with add button. And here I'll add some Bootstrap classes specifying deflex and justify content center to center the fields. Okay, save the changes. And then for this input field, I'll create a new variable called new task equals to empty string. And now I'll bind the same variable to the input field using two-way data binding. So I'll write the syntax of banana in a box and inside that I'll write ng model equals to new task. And to enable two-way data binding, we need to import the forms module. Okay. Now first let's check this new task and save the changes. And if I write anything inside this box, we are getting the same value. Okay. So now next, let's create another variable called task list. So here I'll create one more variable called task list of type array. But before that, we will define the structure of array by exporting an interface called iTaskList. Export interface, and inside this, I'll add simple ID of type number and then task of type string. And now I'll update the task list variable of type iTaskList. And for demonstration purposes, I'll add some dummy data in this array and complete the UI part. So first I'll add ID 1, comma, task, like create component. I'll copy paste the same object 2 more times. And I'll update the task along with ID. Update component and delete component. This is of ID 3 and this is of ID 2. Okay. So we have added 3 dummy objects inside this task list array. Now, to display the array in the HTML file, we will use the @for control flow syntax to iterate over the task list. So here, let me take one more div, and inside that div, I'll write the syntax of @for task of task list semicolon track task.id. And then inside this for loop, I'll take one more div, and then inside bold tag, I'll write the syntax of string interpolation and bind with task.id. And after that, I'll take p tag, and here I'll write task dot to this id and task we have binded inside this for loop. And in order to use the @for directive, we need to import either for or common models. So I'll go with common module. Okay. So after this ID and task, I'll add one delete button to delete the completed task. So button dot btn dot btn secondary and margin 1. And name of the button is delete. Now save the changes and let's test the application in the browser. And we can see the dummy task data is rendered on the web. Okay. So before moving forward, let me enhance the UI by adding some Bootstrap classes to this task list. Let me add the class to this div, class call sm12 and margin top 5. And also I'll add the classes for this div as well. Class deflect, justify content between, and then I'll add align item center. Why I'm not getting suggestions? I don't know. Item center margin Y3, and I'll change the text color to text primary. Okay, just have a look into browser, and yeah, now we can see each task in line. Now next we will implement the delete functionality. And to do this, we need to add the click event to this delete button. Click equals to, I'll name the function on delete. And here I'll pass the task ID as a parameter, task.id. And after that, we need to define the same function inside the class file on delete with parameter ID of type number. Now, inside this function, we will filter the task list to execute the task with the ID matching the user's request. Like here, task list equals to task list dot filter, and inside bracket response arrow function, and then response dot id is not equal to task id. Okay. So how it will work? If you delete a task with ID 3, the task list will be updated to remove that task with ID 3. Let's test this delete functionality. And here, when I delete this last task with ID 3, You can see it is successfully removed from this task list array. If I delete this too, this second task also deleted from this task list array. It means our delete functionality is working fine. So with this, our HTML work is done. Now let's shift our focus to the TypeScript file. I have kept the UI simple for now, but it can be designed according to specific requirements. Okay. Now to move forward, we will remove the hard-coded dummy task and initialize this task list array as empty. And by doing this, it will allow us to implement the functionality where users can add their own task. Okay. So since we have deleted the dummy task, so there is no task available on the UI. So to move forward, we need to work on this add button. So let me see if I added the click event on the add button. No. So let me add the click event with function on add. And we need to define the same function inside the class file. So here I'll add on add, and inside this function, we will write the code. So what we need to write inside this on add function, we need to push the user entered a task inside this task list array with an ID generated dynamically. So for that, here I'll write task list dot push, and inside curly bracket, I'll write ID. And how we can generate the dynamic ID? The task list dot length plus 1, comma, task colon task list. Sorry, not task list, new task. Okay. Inside this task list array, we are pushing the new task along with dynamically generated ID. And how we are generating the ID? The task list array dot length plus 1. Save the changes. And if I click on the add button, the blank task is pushing inside the task list array. Okay, so to avoid this, we need to move this line number 24 inside one condition. So I'll add here if condition, and the condition is new task is not equal to empty string. Then only execute this line number 24. Now save the changes and let me try one more time. Yes. So this condition will prevent empty task from being added when the add button is clicked. After this line number 24, let me log the task list and save the changes. And now we will check the output. Let me inspect this page. I'm clearing the console. And here I'll add my first to do task. And now I am going to click on the add button. And as we can see, the entered task is reflected on the UI as well as on the console. Now one more thing, after adding the class, I want to clear the input field to keep the UI clean and make it easier to add new task. So for that, after this console, I'll write new task equals to empty string. And now I'll remove this console. Save the changes. Test one more time. Testing. Click on the add button and the input field is clear. We can add the new task. Test 2. Okay, so with this implementation, users can add as many tasks as they want. Now last, if I refresh the page or after refreshing the page, the data disappears because we haven't stored the user's data anywhere yet. So let's fix this by implementing local storage to persist the task list. And how we can store data locally? By using the setItem and getItem method from local storage object. So inside the onAdd method, I'll write local storage dot set item. First, we will use the set item method. And this is the method that stores data in the browser's local storage, and it takes two parameters, a key and a value. I'll pass key as a task data. This task data is a key, which is a type of string. And this is like a label. We can give any name. Comma. Second parameter is value. And our value is this dot task list. But this is array. We need to convert this array to the string. And for that, we need to use the stringify method from JSON. So here I'll write JSON.stringify. This JSON.stringify method converts a JavaScript object or array into a string. So this task list is an array of objects, or we can say our to-do list items. And the local storage can only store strings, not complex data types like arrays or objects. So by doing this, we have converted our task list array into a string using JSON.stringify method and storing that string in local storage with the key task date. Now let's test this first. Let me inspect this browser again and let me go inside the application, and then I'll click on the local storage. Here I'll add test and click on the add button, and inside this local storage, here you can see we can successfully store the task inside the local storage. Similarly, I'll add one more test2. This is also added inside the local storage. But if I refresh the page, the data will disappear from the UI. We cannot see the stored task on the UI because we have only stored the data on the local storage. So to fetch the data from the local storage, we will use the getItem method from local storage object. So our next step is we need to fetch the stored data from local storage, and for that we will use the local storage.getItem method to retrieve the data, and then we need to use json.parse method to convert it back to an array. So let's do this now. So we will put this logic inside ng-on-init lifecycle hook. Implement the on-init, and then after this task list array, I'll define the ng-on-init lifecycle hook. And inside that, I'll write local storage.getItem method. I'll store this in one local variable. Let data equals to local storage.getItem, and then here we need to pass the same key, that is task data. After that, we need to pass this data. So here I'll write if the data is not null, then we will use json.parse method to convert the string back to an array. So task list equals to json.parse data, this data. Okay. While setting, we are converting an array to string, and while getting, we are converting string back to an array. And the last one is, let's add this local storage.setItem inside the onDelete method to ensure the storage is updated whenever the task is deleted. So I hope we have written all the necessary code inside the class file as well. Now it's time for a full test run. So let me refresh the page first, and our application tab is already opened. Let me delete these two tasks and let me add the new task. And then I'll refresh the page one more time and I'll add new task here. Create component, add. Second task is API integration. Third task is update UI. So like this, we can add as many tasks as we want. Create new page, etc. Okay. Now I'll refresh the page and you can see still we are getting the same task because this time we have stored the data on our local storage and fetch same data on the UI with the help of getItem method. Here you can see the list of tasks on the local storage and the same task updated on the. Now I'll delete the last create new page task, and here you can see the last task is deleted from the UI as well as from the local storage. If I delete the second task, then second task is deleted from UI as well as local storage. And if I refresh the page, you can see the updated task on the UI. So it looks like everything is working as expected. The data persists even after refreshing the page. We can add the new task. We can delete the existing ones and refresh the page without losing any data. Okay, so there are two types of storage object, local storage and session storage. Local storage object used for local storage where data is stored permanently and retained even after the browser is closed. whereas session storage object used for session storage, where data is stored temporarily and deleted when the browser is closed. So for testing, you can use any object. The main difference between session storage and local storage lies in how long the data is stored. That's it. So just for recap, we built the TODO application from scratch. We started with UI using dummy data, then replaced it with random user data, and finally we implemented the local storage using the local storage object to persist data between page refreshes. So that's it for this video. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more FAD learning content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, keep visiting, keep learning, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you. Bye bye.